People believe in God because it's easier for them, I think. It's easier for them to think that there is something covering you or someone protecting you, or something will happen after you will get killed and you will go to paradise or something. I don't believe in such stuff, But it's still not a reason not to fight Russians or not to fight back for your country, because any case, if they will come here, they will still kill you. And if you run away, it's like how you're going to look in the mirror at the end of any other day in any other place that you are going to live, that you are like covered. There's running from your own home because someone is coming with the firearms to your house. Like, fight. If you're a man, fight. If you're not, run. That's it.
Hello and welcome to Operation Tiki, where I relate incredible stories from friends in Ukraine. This is a follow-up interview to the immensely popular one I did with Nikolai Mikulich in October last year, which several viewers described as the best interview about the war that they'd seen. Hopefully this one is even better. Nikolai Mikulich has a reputation as the best firearms instructor in Ukraine, and when the Russians invaded, he fought them with his own weapons. When I saw him in Kyiv last year, he brought along his friend Dmitri Shatrovsky, who is head of the Veteran Brotherhood and who has been fighting for the Azov Battalion since 2014, and the two of them told me the story of how they'd survived being near fatally injured on the front line a few months before. And they related it like it was a drunken night out. Unfortunately, my camera was not rolling as this was over lunch, so when I went back to Kyiv a few weeks ago in May 2023, I made sure to get the story on film this time. So in this interview, you can hear Kolya describe how he survived an explosion, what went through his mind when it happened, how he assessed how badly injured he was, how he managed to get back to safety to be treated despite bleeding profusely, and the role that training played in all of this. It's an unbelievable story, and of course, many great fighters were not as fortunate as Kolya. In the second half of the interview, we covered geopolitics, which Kolya is very knowledgeable and articulate about, and we talk about subjects such as why speaking Russian doesn't mean that you want to be part of Russia, which should be obvious, but which apparently still needs explaining to some people. We cover who the Ukrainians are really fighting and the economic argument for the West to support Ukraine. Finally, when I was in Ukraine, I organized for the legendary British journalist Charles Moore to have a firearms lesson with Kolya. So if you would like to see Kolya in action and learn how to operate a semi-automatic safely, then subscribe and turn on notifications so that you hear about the video when that comes out. But in the meantime, please enjoy this incredible conversation with my friend Nikolai Mikulich. So last time I spoke to you in Kyiv, it was with your friend Dima, who's head of the Veteran Brotherhood and has been a member of the Azov Battalion since 2014. And I have about 30 minutes of footage of you trolling him, saying that he looks like he runs a kebab shop, saying that his girlfriend is the result of a medical experiment gone wrong.
That's true.
But then you guys fought side by side, so you must have a very strong bond together.
Yes, we had. Actually, I met him long time before we go to war together, we go to fight together. So I know him because he was coming to take lessons in shooting from me. So that's where we met. And I had also a few other guys from Azov Battalion whom I know, and there is no problem with Azov Battalion at all, like people talking about the far right and stuff like that. So I'm Israeli and they are Azov Battalion, and we are friends and talking, so it's okay. There is far-right nationalists, but not particularly all of the members of this group or battalion or whatever. And Dima, we are good friends because just even before the war. So the way I laugh about him, because it's true, he's like in Azov Battalion, which is accepted by all the West, at least viewed by the West, that they are like Nazis from German white faces, Nordic pride or stuff like that, white pride, and he's looking like Azerbaijani kebab trader. So this is funny because he's in Azov Battalion and he knows all the guys from there, and he's still looking like Caucasian. And in English, Caucasian is also we.
Yeah,
so
white,
Caucasian is like Caucasus
Middle
Mountains,
Eastern.
the guys from Caucasus Mountains. So this is really funny. And about the girl, it's his ex-girlfriend. So she really,
Oh, really?
she really looked like like someone who put a lot of silicone into her face, like Putin. She's looking a bit better than Putin. So that's it. That's true. It's not something that I not my fantasy or I try to make things looking worse. It's true. So that's it.
Okay, so last time I saw you, you guys told me over lunch how you were injured together in the same battle. And I couldn't tell if one of you saved the other one's life or if you just both came back from the front line to medical assistance together. Can you tell me what happened?
We got injured together, but he was injured before, like minute before or 3 minutes before. I don't remember exactly because in this kind of situation you don't calculate time properly. It's like extreme situation. You have different kind of view. It's like slow motion or faster or rewind. It's different. So he was injured faster than me. He was injured before because I've seen his injury and it was really clear because I heard like something coming. A bullet or shrapnel. He's talking that it's bullet. I don't know where bullet should come from because we were less than zero, less than the ground level. So they're not supposed to be bullets coming from the other direction, but it may be ricochet from some tree or something. But I've heard definitely something which was like crossing and then his head like fold. And then I've seen his eyes poke out because his eyes were like big and rounded like this, and he can talk, and I see bloodstream running from here, from the head. So I told him, I see, and he's trying to realize what happened because it's shock. He get a really strong trauma. So he's shocked. I'm looking at him and I see that he's not realizing what's going on because his eyes like this and blood running, and I say, I've seen its head. Like calm down and get back. It doesn't matter already when he get hit into the head, and I've seen that this is like heavy injury. It was already doesn't matter to stay in this particular hideout because any case he's going to die. So now he has like all the reason to risk his life more, but to save his life. And sorry for the bad English, but he was supposed to retreat. Because otherwise, if this battle continue for another like half hour, he will die from losing blood and injury. So I told him, I've seen its head, go back, like any case, go back. And he started going backward in prone position, and he go through the bushes, which were very aggressive. These bushes with it's
thorns.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter because of his head already was with bullet or shrapnel inside. He just go through it, and he get to the trenches. And guys from Ukrainian infantry in the trenches from 28 Mechanized Brigade, they drag him inside, and they start, helping him to go out, and they call for the medical support for medevac. But the problem was that medevac was not able to come to our position because we were on very front position, the frontest from possible positions. So there was no way that vehicle can come there because it will be destroyed immediately. In south it's like less. It's just you can see it's flat. Yeah, you can see like 14 kilometers away. So there is no way to go toward the very front positions. So they evacuated him by feet. He can walk. He still can walk. They help him, but he can walk for like 500 or 400 meters, maybe 600 meters, to where the car actually can come. Any case, it was risky because there is landmines and all the stuff that the car is driving like in the middle of the landmines which they put by themselves, so they know where the mines are and they're like crossing. It's still very dangerous. And still Russians can shoot because the fight was not over. They still can launch mortars and artillery fire or whatever. But in any case, they came, and these guys from infantry, they helped him to get into the car. And at that specific moment, I get injured also. While he was evacuating, I get injured after him because I stayed on the same position. I took his gun because I had only sniper rifle, which is bolt action. And you cannot shoot from the zero distance fast, 338, it's very powerful round. but it's for shooting to distances like more than 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometer. This is the distance to work with this rifle. But it's bolt action. You make one shot, then you need to reload, you aim, and then you make another shot if needed. Probably you make one and go out, but still. So I took his assault rifle because he had the assault rifle. He was number 2 in the sniper group, so he was like covering me. So he had an assault rifle, and I took his assault rifle because he don't need it in any case. He go to trenches, which was like 15 meters from us. So I took the assault rifle and I stayed there. I had 2 frag grenades and assault rifle with like few magazines on me because I had my belt with the same magazines for AR-15, so I took his AR-15. And I stayed there, and then I got injured. And it was very same. I just got injured. I realized that I'm losing a lot of blood because all my equipment was like bloody, and I've seen my skin here. So I understood that I will not survive here if I stay in this same position. And then some guy from trenches, they scream like, "You're there?" I say, "Yeah, I'm here." They say, "You okay?" I say, "I'm injured, but I'm okay. I'm still like here." I realize what's going on and I can move. So they say, "Can you get to the trenches that we don't go out?" Because it was still, firefight going. I say, "Yeah." And I start moving toward the same trenches. I realized that I lost a lot of blood because it was, as I say, like 15 meters to go in prone position. It's not something hard to do for the men like who had hands and legs, okay? So I realized that I getting tired and I want to sleep in the middle. Like I move like 7-8 meters with all my stuff, and then I realize that I'm like tired and I need to rest and I need to go to sleep. So I understand that there is blood going out and I feel cold. And then I say, okay, if I stop now, I will die here, so I need to move. And I move toward the trenches. I come like meter and a half toward the trenches, then I feel that someone is grabbing me by my equipment and grabbing me inside to the trench. So I was also, I understand what's happening. I was like in full normal condition. I've seen anything, heard everything, and all the stuff. But still, I realized that something is bad with my leg because it was like not feeling. I was not feeling it very good. So I understand that when the blast came, maybe I hit my leg with something. I didn't realize that this was shrapnel. And there was, I didn't realize that there was blood actually from my leg because from my head was so much blood that it was nothing specific. So I understand that something with my leg happened, but I don't know what. My hand, I didn't even know that there was shrapnel here inside. So leg and hand, I just realized after in the hospital that it was injured. I understand that something not good with leg, but I never think that it's shrapnel and my nerve is like cut already. And head, it was really, something that you cannot ignore because it was like skin here and all the blood coming and my bones, part of my bones, like here I feel it with my fingers. So it was pretty clear that my head got like fucked up. So I get to the trenches and they helped me also. And I remember exactly that the guy who helped me, he bring back the medevac with Dima and other guys from the mechanized brigade, which were injured before, because the medevac was already on their way to the hospital. So he told them by the radio, come back because there is one more injured guy and he will not survive if you not come back now. And because he's losing blood, and it's heavy injuries, so you need to come back. And they say, but we have already 2 on board. And he say, but the third one will die if you don't take them, so get back. I think they were not so far because also we go there by feet. I was able to walk, not so good because one leg was like, but they helped me. 2 guys from infantry, they helped me. I took the shoulders and I walked the same 500 meters to the same place where the car can pick us up. And when we came there, there was no medevac yet, so I wanted to rest. I just go to sleep. They never give me to sleep because it's in TCC protocol, you cannot give to the injured guy to leave. Like you need to always keep him like awake. So they tried not to give me to sleep, but I don't care. I was like talking, fuck off, like I want to sleep, don't touch me. And they was like, no, stay here with us. I said, no, I want to sleep. It's okay, I'm here already. We were waiting for medevac. What it will give? Like I will sleep. And then the medevac came and they evacuated both of us. So this was the story. We both get injured, but we get injured like in period of like 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. I don't know.
Wow.
So this was the story.
So first of all, Dima lost the ability to speak
Yeah.
for a week and a half at least, and then said he had to relearn from scratch. But he could obviously understand spoken sentences said to him.
He was able to make some noises,
Right.
which were close to human being language, but it was not so clear to everyone what he wanted to talk about. Like I remember that they asked him already in medevac, in the car, medevac, it was like fucking red Jeep, which were like ex-civilian car with just, I don't know, some 2 places to lie on and to lay on. And in that medevac, they asked him, what's your surname? And he was trying to say Shatrovsky, and he was not able. He was like, and they like, once again, and I was trying to sleep. So at some moment, it was so making me so nervous that I say like, fuck off, Shatrovsky, just write it. What the fuck you want from him? So they like, calm down. And I tried to sleep. They put this stinky stuff to make you awake, you know, in
Smelling
Soviet
salts.
hospitals, strong smell.
Okay.
It's called nashatyr in Russian. I don't know how you call this in English, but it's something which smells like 10 men pissed 3 years ago in some, you know, bottle, and they keep it closed for more 50 years, and then they open it.
Right.
So they awake me with this stuff, and I say like, "What the fuck you doing? Didn't I get enough? Like, what, you want to kill me finally? Like, stop doing this. I'm just trying to sleep." And it was already painful because they put the tourniquet on my hand and on my leg while I was sleeping in the first place. So when I realized that they put it, but in the car I need to take my hand and my leg up and to keep it there. And it was already like they put it normally as it's supposed to be, to cut the blood, you know, not to circulate. So it was already painful, and I was very nervous. Dima even he was injured. He told like, I've heard this guy outside of the car. He was already talking to everyone, fuck off, what the hell, like that I was like talking dirty outside of the car. He was hearing like from 50 meters that I'm alive because I was like talking to everyone, fuck off, like, and that's it. So this was the funny stuff, and he was not able to speak clearly. Yeah, that's it. He was not able to speak clearly, and he was not able to speak clearly like for a week. And then he had to go to the special lessons, like the kids who have a problem with, speaking. He had to go to work with some specialists to give it back to the normal. And still, even now, if he's nervous or he's trying to say something fast, he's like dumping, like you can hear it, that he's not talking the way he was talking before the injury. So it still has some small, something lasted from this injury. And he's going to music lessons to give back the coordination. Yeah. So this was hard injury, really. And he had it like 2 centimeters inside of his head. His brain was damaged, so it was really hard injury. Yeah.
He said last time, if I remember rightly, that he saw his brain in his hand.
I don't know. Maybe it's fantasy. I don't know. Maybe, but
I'll ask him.
the piece which hit his head was small, because I've seen this head while it folded, and the head was like damaged, something like this. It's like 5 millimeters maybe. By the way, mine also. I had my head in my house because the guys from infantry, they sent me, after the injury, they sent me this head and all this bloody stuff around. and all my stuff from the sniper rifle, because there is like meteo station which is destroyed by the shrapnel, and a lot of my sandbag for the sniper rifle is like with shrapnel inside. So they send all this stuff to me, and there was also my head. So the head was also with some kind of shrapnel, which was very fucking small, and I even don't know how much energy should it have to destroy the most powerful part of the human skull, because this front part is the most sick, and it's still like it destroyed all the front part, and part of my bone is like inside of my brain. I've seen the MRT from my brain, so the one part of the bone from here, it's in the middle, actually in the center of the skull, and it's still there between the brain, so it should have like enough energy to destroy the whole bone and to put pieces inside of the skull. And one small part of metal is still here. I realized it before my last surgery, that there is still metal piece sitting between the eyes, in the nose area here, in the upper part of the nose, and no one is even willing to take it out, because it's very very dangerous place. You can damage the nerves of the eyes, and if it's there for a year already, so it will stay there forever, like no one will take it out. So yeah, that's I don't know about the brain pieces. I mean that the shrapnel was pretty small. I don't know if the brain is able to came out from such a small like holes, but maybe I don't know. I've seen him like blood streaming on the. I never seen brain on his fingers, but he said that he felt something like, the blood from the head. I've seen this before the war, in the fights on the streets and stuff like that. When the head is damaged, the blood is very red and very. It's not like blood from the finger. Okay, it's different. It's looking darker, and it has the more consistency. So maybe he just seen the blood from his head as something. It's something harder, but maybe it was part of the brain. I don't know, because the part of the brain was really damaged. That's true, because I've seen his MRT, and the big part of the brain is damaged in his case. And in my case, I felt the bones when I touched, because I've seen the skin here. The slice of the skin was like on my eye, so I tried to realize if there is still something here, because you don't feel here nothing. And while it's cut by shrapnel, you feel like you cut them by knife or something, not like the brain don't have any nerves to feel the pain. The brain itself never pain from something. So I wanted to feel if there is still like part of my head, or I'm out of my head already. This was the scary moment. Like I tried to check with my hand what's going on there. Because at the moment I was injured, I just lose my ability to see anything and to hear anything for a few seconds, I think. At the moment that the shrapnel hits, it's like the light is like turned off, and the sound is like you go down to the water, like you submerge to the water, and it's like, and you don't hear nothing, like, whoop. And then after a few seconds, it's going back. Like you start seeing these old televisions. In my when I was a kid, it's like, and then the picture is like coming back, and then you hear. So in my case, I felt that there is small parts of bone under my fingers, like here. So I realized that there is hard injury on my head, and also the blood. It's you can realize that this is hard enough. But until getting to the hospital, I was pretty sure that this is like not so hard injury, that I will be now they will like close it, and I'll go back to fight in 1 week or 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. So just later I realized that they need to remove like half of my front bone and make a few more surgeries on my hand and leg and stuff like that. So at the beginning you don't realize that this is so difficult. But I was really close to die, and I understand that I was close to die, because the blood is letting you like know about it. We want to sleep.
And I'm not militarily trained, but is that training that when you get injured, how were you able to self-diagnose accurately and know what the situation was?
Look, the training is very important. The TCC training, this tactical casualty care training, is very important because you know what to do in most of cases. Where there is something to do, you know what to do. What I mean, someone get hit to his leg or to his hand or got his hand cut off. It happens a lot because there is a lot of shrapnel and a lot of shells flying and heavy artillery. So there may be a situation that someone is like this, his hand just flew out. So if you don't know what to do, this guy will die in a few minutes because the bloodstream, at the first moment, it's not like the blood is not splashing because the veins, they have ability to self-close after the immediate cut. But after some small period of time, still he will start losing blood. So if you don't know even to put tourniquet, or you don't have tourniquet, or you don't have this IFAC medical stuff on you, the guy will die. And you, by yourself, if you understand what's going on and you see that you don't have part of your body, you need to close the bloodstream, otherwise you will die. So in this case, the proper medical training, the proper TCC training is very important because you know where your tourniquet is. You do a lot of training with this. You know how to take it out with both of your hands because one may be already out. You know how to open it, you know how to put it fast, you know how to close it. So even before the war, we did such trainings when you do it on timer, you know, how fast you can put tourniquet, how fast you can bandage yourself and stuff like that. It's very important training because you don't have much time. So in case of most injuries, you can save someone by doing the very basic stuff. You don't need to be, you know, expert doctor or surgeon or whatever. You just do the basic stuff which were figured by the people in last century, you know, of wars. And if you follow these instructions, you can save someone. Even not in war, even on the street, you know. So when it's injuries, when it's loss of blood, when it's chest injuries, you need to put chest seal because there may be lung damaged, and the guy, if you don't close this hole itself, he will just die from not having air, not having ability to breathe. Okay, so there is a lot of things that may be done before the doctor come or before the guy came to hospital, and this will save his life. In my case and Dima case, there was not much to do about for yourself, because what you can do if your head is injured, there is only like bandage to put outside to close the hole itself, to make it, you know, maybe less infection go inside or something like that. But you cannot put tourniquet on your and choke yourself or stuff like that. So any case, without normal medical support, if it's head injury, you have not so many chances to survive on the battlefield, because blood is going fast from the head, and you don't have ability to stop it. So you need to go to the hospital. You need to be connected to all this, you know. They need to change the blood with something, and then they need to take care of you. So in our case, there was not much to do about the TCC care, because when these guys who just met me at the trenches, they realized what's with me, they just put like Israeli bandage on my head, and that's it. And afterwards, when we came already to the point where the medevac was supposed to come, they start, you know, inspecting my, like also in TCC, they teach that you need to inspect whole body, because sometimes there is injury that you can see under armor. Under the clothes, there may be some hard injury, which is like not seen, so you need to inspect with your hands and to check all the. So they found that my leg is like, it go through the leg from here to here. So they found that there is injury on the leg, they found on the hand, so they put tourniquet and stuff like that. And this guy, they really saved my life, because first of all, they evacuate me. So there is still place for the TCC, but not much to do. Sometimes there's injuries that you cannot do nothing. Even if it will happen in the hospital, the guy will die because it cut like half of his head, so that's it. But in our case, the most proper thing was to take us to the hospital as fast as possible, because in the hospital they have ability to take care of any kind of injuries which still can be healed.
So actually, there were two ways in which you guys nearly didn't survive, at least. One is you said a piece of bone went to the middle of your head. So if it went slightly to the left or right, I presume it would have hit something that would have given you brain damage. It must have gone exactly between the two hemispheres. Then secondly, I guess if the medevac van was slightly further away, they might not have turned around to collect you guys. So yeah, there's a lot of randomness and more.
So definitely the blood loss was the cause number one, because I felt it. I was feeling that I feel very cold. In the hospital when I came, I always asked them to cover me with something, because I felt that I'm like in the middle of Siberia in the winter, and it was not so cold weather. It was like 16 or 18 degrees outside, so like now, no, a bit less than now. But still, I realized that I lost so many blood that I already feel cold and I want to sleep all the time. So this was the cause number one. Regarding the injury itself, the doctors tell me after, a long time after the injury itself, when I was going to the medical examination, because they need to give you the proper, group of inability and all this stuff. They do it like they check everything. So you go through the doctors, surgeon, and the guy who is working with the skull, and all these doctors. So when they were looking at my case, they were like, "Oh shit! Like, you're a lucky guy," because the shrapnel stopped like 1 or 2 millimeters from the brain itself. It cut, it go through the main bones, it go through everything, and it stopped already in the soft tissue of the brain, which means that it should go like few centimeters more, and maybe I would not die, but maybe I would not see or not speak or not be able to move, So it was really close to get much worse. So it stopped actually at the entry of the brain. Still, my brain was damaged hard, because now the last surgeon which opened my skull once again and put this part of plastic that you can see, you can't actually see, it's like here. So he told me that the brain is damaged hardly on the front part, and I feel it, I'm like old guy who is 60 years old now. I want to sleep when there's like weather change and stuff like that. So you feel this stuff which happens after. But this was really dangerous, the shrapnel itself. The part of bone which flew inside, I knew about it also, like after the last surgery, when I did this MRT before the surgery. So they told me they showed me there is part of my skull inside of the. I don't know how dangerous it was, because some people live with bullet inside of the head and it's still like capsulated, and I don't know, maybe, but definitely it was like close to be worse. And that's what I always tell, that if someone is asking me like how you feel now when you injured and stuff like that, so I say, first of all, I came there by my own. No one sent me there or something. This was my will to go to fight. So when you go into fight, you need to be, you need to realize that it can happen to you also. That not just you shooting on people, people shooting on you as well. Like, you not killing enemies, an enemy can't kill you. This is not computer game. You cannot restart or something. If you made a mistake, or if you had less luck. In lack of the luck at the same specific day, you're just fucked up. So to me, I always say that it shouldn't, it may be, it may go much more difficult and much more dangerous to me, and have much more problems than it actually has. So I feel okay, like, okay, my leg is now injured and I cannot put it up, but I still have this leg, I can walk.
Right.
And my hands are still working, my eyes are still working, I'm able to talk to you, I'm able to see you, I'm able to hear you, I'm able to eat, I'm able to enjoy life, however. So it's okay, you know. That's dangerous. It was close to get killed, but nothing special, you know. I've seen guys with much more dangerous and much more painful injuries during the time that I spent in hospital, and it was a lot of time. So I've seen guys coming from the front line like not able to move, not able to walk, not able to speak. And when I'm looking at these people, I understand and I realized that for him, his family, it was even better that he will die because this is not life. Like the guy is alive only here, the rest is dead. Like he's suffering all the rest of his life. So there is no point in my opinion. I cannot decide for him, but in my opinion, there's no point in such life. So in my case, I'm still okay. I can, you know, riding motorcycles and still can. I'm still training people with firearms. I still can run behind someone. Not so good as I was running before, but I'm still able. So it's okay. It's okay.
Also, when I first heard you were injured, I was obviously worried. I was in London. But then when I saw you in Kyiv last in October, I realized that probably if you hadn't been injured, you probably would have been killed by now, given how you were fighting.
Maybe, maybe. I don't know. It's difficult to say 100%, but my chances were really good because the brigade which we work with, they go to Bakhmut area after. When the southern operation ended by seizing Kherson back, like Russian withdrawals from Kherson. So the mechanized brigade which we work with, they are from Odessa originally, from southern area, but they were brought to Bakhmut area, and there was much more difficult firefights in Bakhmut area and more casualties than in the southern area. Just because Bakhmut was like PR important for the Russians, so they threw everything there. Like Wagner Group spent thousands of lives there, but they still going forward and forward and forward. They going like few meters every day, but they still going forward, and they want to seize this city by all prices. So a lot of guys who were actually with us there, they go to the more dangerous place after. And my friend from Odessa, the guy who was going with us from the infantry, he was in military intelligence, like in infantry intelligence. Infantry recon, it's not intelligence. In Russian, it's intelligence. Recon group of the brigade, so he was injured twice already. And both injuries are close to be, you know, fatal and close to be very dangerous to him. So the guy is like 22 years old. I'm almost 40 years old, so if I die, I at least spent all my life, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff. and this guy is like 22 years old, he's just began to live and he's already twice injured. And both time by, once by artillery, second time by SPGs, like grenade launcher. So he had like his back cut with the shrapnel piece which came close to the spine, like few millimeters from the spine, which means that if it go like to the left few millimeters, the guy will not be able to walk anymore. And the second time he got injured with the helmet, the piece of shrapnel or I don't know what came from this grenade, just make a big hole, like more than 12 millimeters hole in the helmet, and it go through his head, just not damage the skull, it cut like skin off. So it was always, it was also close to be fatal injury. And also small injuries, like his shoulder has part of shrapnel inside and his leg. So there is a lot of casualties around. If I would keep going to the places where we were like willing to go, so maybe I would already die. It's good chances.
So for context, Dima, after getting brain damage and then having a plate put in his skull, went back to fight in Bakhmut, I believe he told me.
Yeah, it's not that he came. He is not serving somewhere for the. He is not able to serve in the army anymore officially in the front line because we have a disability group which is not allowing you to join military. But any case, in our state, you can, if you have friends and stuff, you can go somewhere, with your friends and stuff. So we go with our friend, with the same young guy, by the way, who was injured twice. He go to the Bakhmut area and he was there for like 5 days, and he go back to the front line, and he was like on the front line few days, and the guy got injured nearby, and he came back. So he's like making tours to the Donbas area. I was also making, but I'm not talking about this too much. I was going to teach people in the close to the front line, like second line of the defense. And there is a lot of guys in the infantry who need to get a proper firearm training, so I'm going there also. But this is not going back to fight, in my opinion. I don't know how you judge it, but in my opinion, go back to fight. It's like you joining the military once again, and you go and sleep there all your time and spend all your time there on front line. So making tours and going back to front line is different. But still, he is not. He's not supposed to go even for a few days, He's like a guy who cannot go anywhere. No one will take him. No commission, no military unit, and no police unit will like grab him to the army once again because his injuries are not letting him to join army and to fight. So the way he's going by himself, like in his own will, it's still very respectful because most of the guys in Ukraine who have perfect health, they are like trying to cover themselves from the military and not to go to fight. So this is like still it's very good example to show. But there are guys in Ukraine who is going back to fight without foot or without hand, and this is like crazy stuff. And there are guys who lost like part of the leg. They have something like exhaust part of the feet from metal and plastic, and they still going back to fight. So, and really going back to fight, they are join like units like Azov and going back to fight. I don't know how fine is it because this guy is like not able to move like he was moving before, so it can be a problem for the rest of the unit in some cases. But any case, I show like 100% respect to such people who is brave enough and has enough will to go back fighting even after being badly injured.
Do you have any kind of spirituality or belief system or belief in fate that makes any sense of the randomness of which people get to live and which people get to die?
No. Since I'm not religious in any mean, I'm like I'm agnostic, so I don't know what's after and what's in the sky and stuff like that. So the stuff I don't see, stuff I can't feel, I don't believe in it. So all just spiritual stuff, that there is karma for good people and bad people and stuff like that, or you get more chances to be being killed if you are a bad person or good person, or the way you behave or something. I don't believe in this. I think that the guy who is like risking his life more is more likely to be injured. The guy who is risking less is less likely to be injured. This is like physics. So the guy who is fighting all the time in Ukraine, for example, the guys who are fighting from 2014 till now without breaks, and there is guys who join the military or Azov or whatever other freewheeling battalions on the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2014, and they serve until now. So there is not many of these people survived, because if you are 8 or 9 years continuously, how you say it, in the war with no breaks, the chances that you will be killed like higher 10 times than if you are 1 year in the military. And especially now, when it's full-scale war and artillery war, it doesn't matter how well you prepared. It doesn't matter how well you handle your firearms. It even doesn't matter how good your tactics and your solutions and your strategics and doesn't matter if you are in the area where the shelling is going. So it's just matter of time and chance that you will get your shrapnel or your blast or something that will kill you. So most of people in this war are killed by shrapnel and by artillery fire and rocket fire and stuff like that, not by firefight from the 20 meters, okay? There is, but still it's like 10% or 7% killed by bullets in statistics. And mostly it's like tank fire or shell fire or blasting mortars, mines, land mines. Landmine doesn't care how well prepared you are. If you step on it, it will kill you or cut your leg off. So the more you walk in the places which are landmines, so the more are chances that you will get killed or will lose your legs. So this is, I don't believe in spiritual part of this. I believe that the guy who is like, how you call it, has the altitude for the positive outcome, like the guy who believe in victory, the guy who believe in his skills, the guy who is like, the guy who trusts his commanders, the guy who trusts his teammates, they have better chances to survive because they operate better, because they are not like picking the hands up while the first shot are fired and going to drop the gun and to cover themselves. They are still fighting, they are still communicating with each other, they are still doing some stuff, they are still trying to make the situation better, and they are like professionals, so this is good. But I don't believe in spiritual part that if you like pray to God more, then you will get less chances of getting killed. It's bullshit, you know. People believe in God because it's easier for them, I think. It's easier for them to think that there is something covering you or someone protecting you, or something will happen after you will get killed, then you will go to paradise or something. I don't believe in such stuff, you know. But it's still not a reason not to fight Russians or not to fight back for your country, because any case, if they will come here, they will still kill you. And if you run away, it's like how you going to look in the mirror at the end of any other day in any other place that you are going to live, that you are like covered, there's running from your own home because someone is coming with the firearms to your house. Like, fight. If you're a man, fight. If you're not, run. That's it.
Okay, so Kolya, you've fought on the front line for Ukraine, as we've heard, and yet you still speak to your friends in Russian. Please, can you explain to people in the West why speaking Russian doesn't mean that you want to belong to Russia?
In my case, I was speaking Russian since childhood, as well as Ukrainian. In specific, my case, part of my family are Russian speakers, because they are from Jewish and Belarusian descent, so they speak Russian. They never use Ukrainian in their home. But my grandmother, by the way, she was able to speak Ukrainian fluently, better than Ukrainian politicians. She was Jewish, but she raised in Ukraine, and she was speaking Ukrainian fluently. But part of my family was speaking Russian since my first words in life. Okay, so my life, I was speaking all my life Russian to half of my family, and the other half of my family were Ukrainians. Lemke, by the way, it's like Rusins. It's not Ukrainians. It doesn't matter. It's a difficult story. It's Ukrainians who live in Poland originally, but they speak their own language, which is, if I would speak this kind of native language of this ethnic group, no one would understand me in Kyiv, because it sounds like in the middle of Polish and Ukrainian. So to me, the language question, like, I know Ukrainian and I know Russian. If someone is Ukrainian speaker, I'm speaking Ukrainian because it's more comfortable to me and to the other person to speak Ukrainian. We are in Ukraine, okay, and if I come to cafe or a restaurant or whatever, I speak Ukrainian because I'm in Ukraine, not in Russia. And some of my friends, we're speaking Russian whole life. All the time that I know these people, I speak Russian to them. So if they decide to go to Ukrainian and they will start speaking Ukrainian with me, like Chingiz, our mutual friend, he's not Russian and not Ukrainian. He's Asian guy who learned Russian and now he's learning Ukrainian and he's speaking Ukrainian with a lot of mistakes and typing in Ukrainian with a lot of mistakes. But I always I respect this guy with all my heart because it doesn't matter what mistakes he makes. I don't know his language at all. I cannot speak in his language even with mistakes. I cannot type a word in Kyrgyz or Kazakh language, and this guy is knowing Russian language and now learning Ukrainian language and English, so I just respect the guy. So if he will talk to me Ukrainian now, and before we were speaking Russian, I will answer in Ukrainian because to him is important. He wants to learn Ukrainian. He wants to speak Ukrainian in Ukraine. I'm speaking Ukrainian. But some people, we are used to speaking Russian all our life, whole entire life. So why should I forget about Russian language in using it with my friends as it always was, just because some fucking dumbass in Kremlin began war and Russian state is like making aggression against Ukraine. Russian language not belongs just to Russian Federation. Russian language is international language which used widely it's one of 6 international languages in the world. So I don't see problem in language. Some people will tell you that language is weapon, and it's true in some cases because one of the main points of Putin aggression was defending Russian language. Okay, so some people in Ukraine, they say if there were nothing to defend, he would not attack Ukraine, which is a big mistake in my opinion, because Russia always will find a reason to declare war on someone. Okay, so I don't see it as a main reason. It's just bullshit for the population, for the elections, and to get more support in Russia, like I'm defending Russian language worldwide, okay? Bullshit. The Russian language speaker suffer the most painful losses in this full-scale invasion, and since the beginning as well, 2014, which areas suffer the most losses? Donbass, Luhansk, now it's Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, Odessa, southern and eastern and north part, which were traditionally like Russian speaking. So they suffer more from this war than western part of Ukraine, which was always, Ukrainian speaking, or central part, which is like half by half. So to me, the language is not a problem. The problem is the guy who kill people, rape people, torture people. Doesn't matter what language they speak. I respect Ukrainian language. I love Ukrainian language. I know Ukrainian language. I use it. I write in Ukrainian language. I start doing this more in my social media, for example, since the large-scale invasion, because sometimes I want to give more respect to the Ukrainian language and prefer to use it over the Russian. But it doesn't matter, then I will not speak Russian anymore. They can't steal something which is mine, this is my language. Since a kid, I speak Russian to my father. What kind of language should I speak to my father now? This is stupid, and I see no reason. It's my personal opinion, I'm not telling that someone should agree with me or do the same. If someone wants to forget Russian and start using just Ukrainian, okay, he's welcome. I don't have a problem. I will speak Ukrainian to him. And any other person. I'm speaking English to you now.
Right.
Not Ukrainian and not Russian, because you are English speaker. Why should I answer you in Ukrainian? This is something stupid to do, okay? If I know English and you're an English speaker, it's comfortable for us to speak English. It doesn't mean that I know English more than Ukrainian or more than Russian. It's just comfortable. I learn English to speak with people who don't know Russian and Ukrainian, so I use it. Someone speaking Hebrew, I'll speak Hebrew, because to us it's normal to speak Hebrew. So I don't see any problem with the language. I think this is the painful question just right now because of the suffer of Ukrainian people. Like the war, it bring this question like higher, and it make it more sensitive because of losses and because of Russian-speaking people killing Ukrainians. But calling them Russians, it's already a big mistake, because in Ukrainian and in Russian language there is two different words. There is Russians, which is ethnicity, and there is Russian citizens. So in Ukrainian and in Russian, it's Ruskiye. Ruskiye means Russians. It's ethnicity. Right. So people who are Russians by ethnicity, they are called Ruski. And there is Россияnin. Россияnin is a citizen of Russian Federation. So Россияnin doesn't mean Ruski, because we have Buryats, we have Chechens, we have Dagestani, we have Agli, Mugli, Ugli, Hugli, all the fucking, I don't know even to spell this name correctly. So this is not Russians. Russians are looking like me.
Right.
The guy who is Asian, or the guy who is from mountains of Caucasus, having like black hair and a wrestler from Dagestan, he's not Russian, he's Dagestani, he's Alanyets, or there is 100 and something ethnicities in the Caucasus, okay? Chechens like Nokhchi and Ingush, whatever. There's a lot of ethnicities in Russia which are not Russians at all. So calling them Russians, it's already a mistake, because whole Russian Federation is fighting against Ukraine, not just Russian ethnicity. All ethnicities of Russian. Tatars are Muslims, which are 25 or 28 million in Russia. 28 million Tatars in Russia. Are they Russians? No, they aren't. They don't have Russian religion, they don't have Russian traditions, they don't have even Russian names sometimes, but they are from Tatarstan, and you call them Russians. So this is a mistake, to take a language as a main point of aggression. No, this is like Russian Empire expansion. One more try to destroy Ukrainian state, or any part of Ukrainian state, or any tryout of making Ukrainian state, to destroy Ukrainian nation as something separate from Russian Empire, okay? To not let Ukraine to join any Western alliances like European Union or NATO, which is like, the most critic for Russian, also for Russian PR, because they made already worse situation than it was before the full-scale invasion. So there is no problem in the language. This is a big mistake in Western media, by the way, also, when they call Putin's war or Putin's army. It's not fucking Putin's army, it's Russian Federation army, it's Russian army. Okay, Russian not in mean of ethnicity, Russian mean of Russian Federation. It's not Putin killing all the kids here in Ukraine, it's not Putin driving every tank, it's not Putin shooting every shell, not Putin bombing from the fighter jets and bombers, not Putin sending these missiles, ballistic missiles to Ukraine. This is Russian soldiers, Russian officers, Russian mother who grew up this kind of shitty soldiers and shitty persons. Russian schools who give them education and give them this will to kill someone, to make someone suffer, to torture someone. It's not Putin, okay? So calling Putin's war, it's same like in our case, like making Russian language guilty in what's going on. It's not language, it's people. So I have a problem with the Russian Federation as a state. I have a problem with Russian people as an political group, right. Not ethnic group.
Russian citizens.
Russian
citizens.
Problem
with Russian citizens.
Citizens of Russian Federation, which are, even if they disagree with Putin, okay, They are telling like not all Russia is supporting the war against Ukraine. It's like small percent of Russians supporting, so you need to tolerate the rest. And why the West is not allowing us to go to the West, to stay in England or in Germany or in France or in Switzerland. Why we are like suffering sanctions. We are not Putin supporters. We didn't vote for him, but you did nothing to stop this. If you didn't vote for him, so who voted for him? Like, well, his rule should stay on someone's shoulders. So this is your state. If you are not able to change it, and if you disagree, but you disagree so silently that no one knows about this, that you disagree, so you suffer with all the rest of your state, and you are responsible for what your state did. Like, not all Germans were Nazis in Second World War, but the state was responsible for what they did, and they was paying money for, at least for, I think, recent 10 or 15 years, they stopped paying money for Jewish reparations, for Jewish families and for other families in Ukraine also. So it's not about language, it's not about ethnicity, it's about political regime, which is now ruling Russia, and about Russian citizens who are doing war crimes, who are doing aggression against different independent state, and they are all responsible for this. So no language is determining the responsibility. Just the stuff that they do. That's it.
And you sent me an article a couple of months ago from Russian media saying that British people were having to eat. I mean, it just sticks in my mind because it's memorable. But British people were having to eat their pets' food because of the cost of living crisis in the UK. And it detailed other things going on, supposedly. I don't know why you're reading Russian media. I guess you like to hear what's going on the other side.
It's funny. It's always funny. It's always funny. I'm not reading the Russian media, actually. I'm reading just the most funny stuff from Russian media. So I'm not like looking 24 hours for Russian TV to find something. But there is always something very, very, very wild and stupid that they produce. So you see it in Telegram channels already cut off from the live stream. Like Solovyov and all these idiots in the main Russian mainstream media, they always talk bullshit and they always do some weird stuff. So this was part of such, operations. And this was for the Russian population, for the Russian citizens, to show them that not just they suffer, because they are really suffering from the sanctions of West, they are really suffering because last year they lost something like 47% of their oil and gas income. 47% by 1 year. This is very big amount of money for the Russian government. And if Russian government is not getting enough money, it doesn't mean that the Russian government will not steal money and will not buy Bentleys and ships and buy fancy and build fancy houses outside of Moscow. They still will do it, but these poor people living in Russia, they will suffer from the cutoff. So to show the Russian population and usual Russian citizens that not just them are suffering, they are always making this kind of news, that in Great Britain people don't have enough food, so they eat their pets' food because they don't have money to buy food. And it doesn't matter that the pet's food is more expensive than the regular. Russian citizen don't know it because he never buy pet's food. He is giving to the pets what he didn't finish from his table. In Russia, it was like this in the villages, They make borscht, so all the family eat, and what rest like to the dog. So they make this kind of news. They also make news about Germany, that in Germany there is so high gas prices that they stay in cold houses for the winter because they don't have enough money to pay for the gas, because Russian cheap gas is out of Germany. So now they need to pay more for the expensive American gas, and now they don't have money. The poor Germans, very poor country, Germany, like second or third economy in the world, like they are very poor, they don't have enough money to pay. I asked one of my friends living in Germany, like, how much is the bill for the gas in the winter? He said, like, it can go up to 400 euro per month in a normal, big house. So I say, but it's not so expensive for German average citizen, which is getting like 5 or 6,000 euro salary. It's like 10% of the salary. It's still expensive in means of Ukraine or Russia, because the whole salary in Ukraine is like 500 euro, and in Russia as well, maybe 700 euros. So for them, it sounds something like a very big amount of money. But in Germany, it's affordable for normal people. And they making this kind of news that like all Europe is suffer, they don't have food, the prostitutes are giving customers service just for food, not for money anymore, because there is no customers, no money in Great Britain. Like it's so, it's coming, it became like some comedian show in Russian media. In United States, it's old tradition, by the way. Like Soviet Union were doing same. Soviet Union people were suffering all their life. They had one kind of sausages in the shop, one kind, not 10 kinds, one, and not always available. Okay, they have like milk shortage. You can buy only one bottle of milk for one hand pair. So they make like, in the United States they are lynching black people. Look what's going on there. Like, we are living in peaceful state. We are not killing anyone by their skin color or ethnicity. And there in the United States, they are killing like black people because of. So always the Russians, they are looking for some problem in other state and try to make it like main news. And maybe they even find some fact of in Great Britain of some poor people who don't have food, but they describe it as it's like large scale problem of whole state, not specific person's problem. So that's funny stuff.
So I slightly worry that some Russian propaganda is getting a bit of a foothold in the West. So like on the language point, I even met some seemingly super nice English people at an event a few weeks ago, and they said, oh, but of course, people in the East and Ukraine speak Russian, as if somehow that excused the invasion. And the UK and the US are having domestic problems, they have inflation. In the US, they're worried about the rising debt ceiling and so on. And they're kind of seeing this as an excuse not to fund the war in Ukraine. So on the American right, you hear the argument that the United States doesn't have a strategic interest in Ukraine. We can't afford this. We spent too much money in the Iraq war. Let's not make the same mistake again. We need to deal with our own domestic problems. And when you describe why you fight in the Ukrainian war, you talk about defending your home, which makes complete sense if you're Ukrainian. But what would the argument be for people in the West to continue to fund Ukrainians to fight this war?
Very simple, very simple. United States, let's start with the United States. United States, who change Russian gas and oil suppliers or all over the Europe? Like I told you in the previous question that Russia lost 47% of their gas and oil export during the large-scale invasion against Ukraine. Who changed it? Like, who is instead of the Russians now supplying gas and oil to the Europe?
The US.
So, how much money did they spend on supporting Ukrainian army in the war against Russia? I don't remember the exact number. How much was this figure? Like 200 billion? Or
I was hoping that was a rhetorical question because I did not look up that figure beforehand.
$200 billion
yeah, okay.
or something like that. Okay, so like this gas and oil industry is bringing incomes in yearly, terms much higher, and Russia did not lose this market for 1 year or for 3 years. They lose this market for at least 10 to 15 years until there will be another Russia probably, and maybe the sanction will go lost and they will come back to the market of Europe or whatever. So to me, I don't know. I'm not the economist. I'm not, the expert in gas and oil industry. But I think that Ukrainians are doing a very big favor to the United States by fighting Russians, not just in strategical military form, because in military way, the NATO expansion is natural way of NATO. The NATO was created to expand, okay? NATO was created as opposition to the Soviet Union. So this particular military organization was created to go against Soviet Union. So since Russia is trying to become the new Soviet Union now, so NATO is like should expand, okay? This is normal. So in this case, United States, I don't see any losses. It's like not so big budget to get Russian army destroyed, pissed, and submissioned, and I don't know, punished. The best way to do it is like to support Ukraine with the weapons and to show that Russians are not so strong and the Russian army is not number 2 in the world and not even number 3 in the world. It's just a bunch of like unqualified soldiers. I know that there's professional units, but in the whole
they
picture,
got wiped out at the start.
Why the big, large-scale war showed that they are not ready even to conquer the eastern Ukraine, not just whole Ukraine, even eastern Ukraine. So what we're talking about? What kind of second army in the world? Okay, so United States are not losing anything in supporting Ukraine. They are doing just good stuff for themselves. They are freeing the markets. They are taking the markets of Russians, and they are destroying Russian pipe systems, like this Nord Stream and all this stuff. It became just useless piece of wreck shit in the middle of the sea. Nothing is going through it. I don't know who exploded, by the way, Americans, British, or Russians by themselves. It doesn't matter. The matter is that no gas is going through this shit, and this was built like for $10 billion each pipe. Americans are doing the very good strategical moves, and the only reason why Russia is number 2 army in the world and why Americans are not supplying us with more deadly and more lethal and more complicated weapons that are able to hit Russia deep inside Russia, it's just because they're afraid that Russian will use nuclear weapons. And nuclear weapons is what makes Russian military number 2 in the world, because they have the largest nuclear arsenal in the whole world. But without this nuclear threat, the Russian army is not number 2. Chinese army can defeat Russian army easily. Without nuclear weapons, I mean Chinese army, which is 3 million people if needed, they can just go through Russia to Moscow with no resistance, I think. The way we see Russian army today, I think there will be even no normal resistance to it. So American army, which is the strongest army in the world, can defeat Russian army in way of like few months, I think. It will be everything destroyed, just no command, no logistics, no ships, no planes, and nothing. So the only stuff that is stopping it, the world from doing this is like nuclear weapons of Russia. So America is not losing anything. Great Britain, I would like to thank. I really respect the Great Britain as the number 1 ally of Ukraine, and I'm not telling this to you just because you are from Great Britain. It's really, I will explain why. The Great Britain is number 1 because the Great Britain is first state to give us the revolutionary weapons. It's not the largest supplier of the weapons in mean of numbers, because the United States is much richer and bigger state, and they have larger military supplies, so they can supply us with howitzers and shells and rockets and stuff like that in big amounts. But the Great Britain is like first state to give us a Storm Shadow rocket, which is able to hit targets at least on 260 kilometers behind the enemy lines, which is a significant increase of Ukrainian abilities, because this is like 500 kilograms of explosion delivered exactly to some specific building in like 250 kilometers away from your point. This is the steps which are required and which require big balls, because United States doesn't will to confront Russia in this way. And Great Britain is having enough balls to do it. So this is something that I would like to be thankful for the British people and British government, And it's not about just Storm Shadow. There was a lot of things that Great Britain was first to do and first to talk about, like tank supplies, Challenger, and no other state wanted to supply the big, heavy main battle tanks to Ukraine. And as British government say, no problem, Challengers, go. And it's not the largest army in the world, which means that they are giving what is really maybe necessary for the Britain themselves. Germany lost a lot of money and a lot of really cheap gas and cheap oil because they were very tightly connected to the Russians in mean of buying the natural sources from Russia. And this hit German economy. But in terms of numbers, the German economy grow less in like 5%, I think, in first year of the war. So the growth of the economy is more, how do you say it?
It's less.
It
grew, but it didn't grow as much as it usually did.
But they grew not so high as they grew before.
Okay.
They high less. Okay,
Yeah.
they grew
the growth
less.
was reduced, but it didn't.
Yeah,
shrink.
the growth is reduced by 5% or 3%, which is catastrophic for the Germany because they are like planning the budget like always increasing, like growing economy. So this time they grow slowly. They grow not so good as they grew before. So this is the main losses of the German government and German state at all. And on other hand, Russian lost market. German gained independence from Russian natural sources. Now they can buy it from others, and they make their economy be able to work without Russian gas and Russian oil. They don't buy it at all already. So the rest of the European states, same. Like some of the states are less powerful than Germany in economic means. So they are not able to seize supplies from Russia immediately, but they are going toward this also. They are like reducing. So I don't see any losers in this particular large-scale war. I mean, in Europe or in United States or in Australia or whatever, I don't see any losers from this war in terms of economy. And yeah, they suffer. Yeah, they had less of income. They have like crisis of price growing and stuff because of Russian oil and gas is not supplying. But on the other hand, they getting independence because the main stake of a Russian was that no one will go against us because we are supplying them electricity, gas, oil, and if they like go against us, we cut it and they will collapse. And they didn't collapse. Okay, they cut it by themselves. They even don't wait that Russian will cut it. They cut it by themselves. They say we will not buy from Russia. Like 1 year, we are buying the last supplies which are like signed, and that's it. We stop buying from Russia, and they did it, and they didn't collapse. So who collapsed and who is the only loser in this planet? It's like Russian Federation and its genius president Vladimir Putin, because all his main goals of this war, which was described very clearly by the Mr. Putin himself on the video, which was slightly, produced all over the Western, Eastern, and Northern and Southern media, was that point number one, denazification of Ukraine, no more Nazis, no more far-right nationalists in Ukraine, failed. More nationalists in Ukraine, now every Ukrainian is nationalist, okay?
Right. Not more Nazis, to be clear, just more nationalists.
No, nationalists, but now Russian-speaking, all the Russian-speaking parts of Ukraine which we were talking about, they are like far-right nationalists. Now they want all Russians to be slaughtered, okay, because Russians are shooting bombs and rockets on them every day. So he make Ukrainians more nationalists. The second point was protecting Russian language. Failed, because you asked me the questions why people are going out of not using Russian language. Even the native Russian speakers are trying to speak Ukrainian now. So the protection of the Russian language failed. Okay, now making NATO not expanding to east failed, and failed.
Right.
Because now, like, the Baltic Sea is the internal sea of NATO states, because Finland and Sweden joined NATO, which means that Russians have some small exit to the Baltic Sea, which is surrounded by NATO countries now from all the sides. So failed in all means, okay? More states joining NATO. Every state now which is close to Russia by the land border or every other way of bordering Russia from the European side want to be part of the NATO states, because this is the only, meaningful protection against Russian aggression or any optional Russian aggression. So all the main goals that this stupid idiot were describing in the beginning of the war are failed. So the only loser in this world, in economic, military, reputational, or whatever grade, is Russian Federation and its genius President Vladimir Putin, and Ukrainian people who suffer losses, because we are the field of the battlefield. Okay, we are the zone of the battlefield now. So, to me, I don't know. The best commercial ever, the best advertisement ever for the American and Western weapons is Ukraine now. Because you see Russian tanks and Russian planes and Russian warships destroyed during the last year, destroyed in numbers that were not available since Second World War, I think. Like 1,500 tanks. What the hell? Like whole Europe together has less tanks than Russian lost in Ukraine, okay? 1,500, I mean just the tanks which are on photo and video.
Right.
Not that someone told to the other friend, we yesterday destroyed 6 tanks, okay? Tanks which are filmed and photographed and they have numbers and stuff like that. So it's like by Oryx, it's more than 1,500 Russian tanks, main battle tanks, big tanks. So APCs like 5,000 or 6,000, where you see such numbers. Like whole Germany has maybe 1,000 of APCs, maybe 500. They have 5,000 of Russian APCs destroyed in Ukraine. The main battle cruiser of the Black Sea Fleet, right. The Guardian, Subguardian, Guardian,
the one that wanted to bomb Snake Island.
Moscow, named Moscow, sunk by 2 Ukrainian rockets. This is like kind of, they getting slapped, every day by the state which is much smaller, which has less money, less people, less weapons, less tanks, less everything. So I don't see any other losers in this world except Russian president and Russian people and Russian government and Russian state at all. That's it.
Amazing. Let's wrap up there.
Thanks.
Дякую, друг. Героям слава.
Будь ласка. Слава Україні. Будь здоров.
If you like this video, like and share so that other people can discover it, and subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can see new releases when they come out. And if you'd like to pay for my travel into a war zone, support Operation Tiggy on Patreon. I'm also hiring a local team, so this creates employment in a country that's had its economy badly hit by the war.